Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Creative Businessmen. Be sure to like and subscribe. On today's podcast, we have Shazir Haque with Shizzy's Wildcat Rescue with us. Shazir, you want to just go ahead and tell everyone a little about yourself and your charity?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, Neil, Daniel, I appreciate you guys having me today.
Definitely. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So my name is Shazir Haque. I'm 28 years old. I'm the founder and executive director of Shizzy's Wildcat Rescue. We are building a big cat sanctuary for tigers, lions, jaguars, bears, wolves, and birds in Columbus County on 56 acres. We currently own 4 buildings, and we also have access to the Lumber River as well. So we have a pretty nice property out there. We have about 18 acres of highland, and everything else out there is wetland, so we'll be able to rescue some various variety of animals out there.
Awesome.
Nice. How did you get started in this?
So in 2013, I was a broke college student, and I took a trip to a facility called Carolina Tiger Rescue. And this is down in Pittsboro, North Carolina, so about an hour away from Greensboro here. And I met a blind tiger named Nitro. And my parents were always like the typical brown people parents where they were like, are you a doctor yet? And so education was very, very important to them. So they said, whatever you do for your animal passion has got to be later in life. And whenever I met Nitro, he ended up passing away a couple weeks after I met him.
Oh, wow.
And that just hit me so hard. And I was, I had no money at the time, no job. So I went back to Carolina Tiger Rescue, and I actually overdrafted my bank account to buy the last photo of him in the gift shop. And I still keep that up today, just as a reminder of why we started. And just like one of the lowest points in my life where I was like, man, I want to get away from focusing just on education. And I started reaching out to different entrepreneurs and businessmen and realized you can do more than one thing at one time if you work hard enough to do it.
That's right.
So I decided I was going to get through school, get my master's degree, and still try to get through with a nonprofit as much as we possibly could. I graduated with my master's degree in August, and a week later we closed on that 56-acre property, so it was perfect time. And so
Nice.
It ended up working out that route. But yeah, Nitro is the one that started the whole thing.
Now, what was your academic? What were your academic studies?
Computer science, history, and then I got a master's in school administration. So I was the intern assistant principal at Page High School for a year.
Okay.
And I'm very big on wanting to help students and get a curriculum that's actually rigorous enough for them to go forward. Most of the students that we see now in college, they have a lack of reading and writing skills, which is the main component of doing well in school to begin with. But I didn't think being at Page High School was the best use of my time to be able to impact that, so I joined the 5-1 Foundation. And they're raising funds right now to build a private school, so we thought that might be a better venture to try to dictate what the curriculum might be, what type of meals the students get, what type of time that they put their activities into, things like that.
That's awesome.
Great.
Where's that going to be?
It's a startup project right now. It started 7 years ago, and there's some phenomenal people on it. Jermaine McCain is one of them. He's one of our board members as well. So Jermaine was actually a business banker. He has his PhD now. He was working at Wells Fargo, so whenever I first started the organization, I had to go get a business bank account, and I didn't even have enough money to do that because I had an overdraft account because I went to go to Wells Fargo right after I bought that photo of Nitro. So he actually helped me open one up, bypassing that, saying, man, I think you'll do well. And so I stayed in touch with him, and we just kind of feed off of each other's passions. He's very passionate about students and making sure that schools are equitable, and I'm very passionate about animal welfare, so we get together and during board meetings we talk about everything and figure out what do you need for your project, what do I need for mine, what ways can we benefit each other, what contacts do we have, what funding sources do we have that you haven't utilized that I have, and vice versa. Just a little mastermind session between us at the end of every board meeting, so it's been pretty good.
That's awesome.
That's great. So did you have any interest in animals or big cats before 2013, or was that?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever I first moved to the United States, I was 4 years old and I didn't speak a lick of English. But you don't need a language to talk to animals. So, I always asked my parents, can I have a cat, can I have a dog? And the answer was always no. So whenever I got some friends, I would always go to the house, and it would be like the coolest thing ever that they have like a animal that greets them. And I was like, man, these guys aren't so bad. And I just started learning more and more about animal welfare and realizing all the horrible stuff that happens to them as a result of either tourism or products that are created in the market and the different ways in which people think that they're valuable for their body parts and et cetera, et cetera. And this is the exotic animal trade. And it went from one thing to another, and I was very passionate about it. And for years, I wanted to do something, but I was like, man, I'm just a kid. How do I do anything? And I just realized, man, there's so many people that can just get through that adversity at a young age. And so it started probably when I was 7 years old. I went to the library and got this book on lions, African lions, and the librarian let me keep it. So I still have that book right now. At the house. It's in horrible condition. And she was like, we can't even use this anymore. You can just keep it. There are pages missing from it, but I loved it. So I learned a lot about animals from that book, and that kind of created the passion. But I love to read at a young age, so that generated a lot of excitement towards animals as well.
Did you have any exposure to this type of wildlife in Pakistan?
No, not at all. I don't think I was old enough to. I'm sure if I would have stayed long enough, I would have went on like some safaris.
How old did you say you were?
I was 4 years old.
Oh, 4, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been in the United States for 24 years now.
Yeah.
And I don't remember much about it. I've only been back once.
Okay.
So
I've got a 4. One that's about to be 4 in May. My youngest son, Cameron, and I just sit here and think about that. Like if I went to a different country today, it's very similar. You know, it'd be a culture shock for him because, you know, I mean, he definitely speaks. So to learn a whole new language and to start and speaking to you, I would never know that you spoke a different language. So
yeah,
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think I came here young enough to where it wouldn't matter. But
4,
yeah. I barely spoke whatever the other language was then.
Might have made it easier, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess you learned faster. You and your sister learned faster than your parents did, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was tough for us when we first got here. Basically came here with just a suitcase.
Wow.
Just relied on our family support, and we had some good support.
Yeah.
But adjusting and getting an apartment and trying to get a car and stuff like that was difficult. But looking back on it, I mean, it's amazing the move my dad made to sacrifice his business there to bring us here, to let go of the family there, and to see what we've accomplished. She has 3 degrees, and she's an attorney in Arkansas.
Wow, that's amazing.
She is your mom or your sister?
Sister.
Sister. That's awesome.
And my mom works at central office now in Greensboro, so she works for the school system.
Okay.
And my dad just retired now, so he's being taken care of by us and enjoying life. So it's good. I mean, the fact that he did all that, looking back, it's a phenomenal decision.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So how old were you when you started your Wildcat rescue, or when you started the project?
21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was a I was a student at UNCG, and I was getting ready to transfer to Charlotte, UNCC, to do a computer science degree because they had a better one there at the time. And I reached out to Dr. Akira Khan and Daniel Foster, some really cool people. And I, you know, throughout my entire short-lived career in animal welfare, because I'm young right now, but I had no ego. If there was someone that was willing to help and they brought something different to the table, I wanted to pick your brain and figure out how you did something, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, so that, like, I'm not in favor of making mistakes twice or learning lessons twice.
Right.
Or learning lessons that someone else has already learned in my inner circle. And they sat me down and gave me these projects that I just thought were so colossal at the time. And looking back, I mean, they were the easiest things ever. Like, you know, you got to get 501c3, and you got to get your articles of incorporation done, and you got to get your EIN number. And I was like, man, how are we going to do any of this stuff? And it was just paperwork. But at the time, it's such huge, colossal things to do. So 21 years old, we did that stuff. Jermaine McCain helped out, and I just kind of sucked people into the project, and they got very passionate about it because they saw how passionate I was, and it just turned into a beautiful thing where they've stuck with me the whole time.
I know you've done a great job at promoting the project and raising money for it. And you've even developed some contacts with celebrities and stuff like that. How far are you from finishing or completing the project?
You know, initially we were going to try and open by the end of the year. But now with COVID-19, we're expecting to have a $150,000 loss over the next 6 months because our donor base is suffering right now, as all Americans are.
Wow.
So I think that it's going to be dependent on how much funds that we can raise. You know, it might push our project out 6 months to a year now, depending on how bad things get with so much uncertainty.
Yeah. Okay.
I was looking. Yeah, it is tough. I was looking at some of the things on his website. He had these plaques essentially, and are they like legacy plaques, or what do you call those?
Yeah, I mean, people love to get their name on something. They want recognition, and we want to be able to give it to them. So we have a $100 small cat habitat plaque. So if you want to donate towards a habitat for a serval, a caracal, a bobcat, a lynx, an ocelot, any of those animals that are smaller tier animals where the habitat doesn't cost as much, we want to put a massive plaque out there that says that these people donated towards these habitats. And then it's $250 for the big cat habitats because they cost a little bit more. But it's pretty cool to be able to say, like, man, I put like 15 feet of fence up on that tiger habitat, and that animal is living well because of my contribution.
Yeah.
And $250 is not a crazy donation either.
No, it's not.
To
It's
get a
not-
plaque, that's not bad at all.
You know, we should probably update it now because
Yeah.
we haven't updated that stuff in a while. But people like it, and it's always strange to try to update stuff like that because thinking back on it, someone paid way less for something that's very similar. So we might do something different in the future, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was looking at it and doing some research. I'm personally, and we'll talk after this another time, but I'd like to do something, whether it be one of the plaques or one of the bricks. He's got bricks that you can do.
Oh,
So you
that's
can
awesome.
kind of get, I guess, your name or your family or like a message on a brick. And
Yeah.
are those bricks actually going to be things that people are walking on, or?
yeah, that's going to be our front pathway to
That's
the
awesome.
building.
Great idea.
So, Noah's Ark Animal Sanctuary did it, and another example of them kind of just sharing some knowledge with us about, hey, this is something our donors really liked. They bring their whole families by whenever you get something like this. They feel very special about it. I mean, you want to be able to connect people. You can't be a cookie-cutter business with a nonprofit and just try to take from people.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to give them something back, and you got to be personable, and it's got to be genuine. You want to be able to help them as well and build some form of relationship, and the bricks and the plaques are a great way to do that.
It's cool to see all the people that sort of put it together too. You know, like the people that contributed to make it happen.
Yeah,
You know, you're actually seeing they're not bricks; they're people, they're families.
yeah. Each contribution is an individual person that decided to give us a part of their life. I mean, they have a job, they spent time to make that money, and the fact that they're willing to give it away, it's incredible. I mean,
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is. Now, and this is a business question more so, but are you guys logging, like mining, essentially logging all the people that have donated and helped along the way? That way you have like a weekly or monthly or some type of newsletter or email or something that's going out to them, like to update them, or is that pretty much just through social media?
So we used to do it. PayPal does a really good job of because everything we get is through PayPal.
Right.
Or most of it is through PayPal. And they do a really good job of showing you, like, hey, this is how much money you got from Canada, this is how much you got from Australia, this is how much that came in from Mexico, this is how much came in from the United States. And we know that California is our main contributors every
Right.
single year, solid.
Wow.
So when I went to LA, I've been to LA twice in the last 3 months, and it's the only 2 times I've been. There were actually people that wore our shirts, like walking around, that
That's
I saw
awesome.
wearing wristbands, and people that
That's very
recognized
cool.
us, and it was just insane. And you know, I knew that those people donated a lot, and obviously, it's strange to see that if a donation comes in from a higher economic area like Boston or LA or like Middlesex, London, because the currency is valued higher, their mindset is higher on what a normal contribution is. So
Right.
we've always tried to promote our business in areas like that, to where if we, at one point we were sending shirts, keychains, wristbands, posters to 6 different stores in London. And because the currency was so much higher, it was easily covering the cost of freight to be able to transfer it. And they were sending us mass amounts of money every single month. And that's what paid for us to be able to put stuff aside to be able to pay our attorney fees and get the property rezoned. And so we definitely want to try and be in those areas. But
Right.
PayPal shows us that those are the areas that donate the most anyway, so we started to promote more in those areas.
Right.
It's amazing that you already have such a big international reach too. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media is a way to make it to where you can reach out to people that are no longer just arm's length away from you.
Right.
Well, the world's small now,
Yeah.
so everything's connected. So
It is.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, e-commerce is such a big thing now with Jeff Bezos and Amazon, and you see how colossal his business has gotten. And I definitely think that is the future for all businesses that should be the main component of your business if you're trying to reach out to people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Quick question, since we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know that there were recently tigers that were diagnosed with COVID-19 in New York.
Right.
How does that affect the wildcat industry or what you're doing?
You know, we talked to some exotic vets about that. So one tiger, Nadia, she's a Malayan tiger in Bronx Zoo. She was confirmed to have COVID-19. Her symptoms were loss of appetite and a dry cough. And big cats have very, very common upper respiratory infections. So USDA did release a statement about the fact that this was diagnosed to be COVID-19 through a different form of a test, so not the same test that humans go through. her sister, another Malayan tiger, 2 Amur tigers, and 3 lions all show symptoms but have not been tested yet, so they're assuming that they also have it. But the fact that this has been diagnosed as zoonotic disease is definitely, this could be very harmful for wildlife. I mean, the things that wipe out populations typically, or any animal or species, are viruses.
Right.
Yeah.
But the fact that this virus has not spread to other animals, and the fact that there's so many isolated cases, makes me believe that this is not going to be a big deal.
Okay, great.
And USDA does not believe that any of those animals are going to pass away either.
Awesome.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. It's hard to even imagine a tiger being sick. Such a powerful animal.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen them be so fragile because whenever we go out to a rescue site or we see animals, we rescue them from insane situations. I mean, they could be
Texas.
So yeah, they think that there's more tigers in Texas than there are in backyards there than in the entire wild in
It's
India.
insane.
Wow.
Joe Rogan has a bit about that.
That's unimaginable.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and the scary part is no one really knows. I mean, there could
Yeah,
be,
and I guess it's legal there, right?
it's legal everywhere.
I don't know how you could legally be able to buy a wild cat like that. I mean, it's like buying a monster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is illegal to buy a squirrel in North Carolina, but it's not illegal to buy a rhino.
What?
So, yeah, so anything that is native, yeah, it's insane. So anything that's native, you can't buy legally.
Yeah, it's wildlife. Yeah. you
Yeah.
have to leave it
So, but
alone.
you can buy, like, for example,
So you can buy a rhino in North Carolina.
you can buy a rhino in North Carolina. You can buy a giraffe. You can buy a lion. There's still one
Wow.
jaguar living in Arizona right now. So jaguars are still illegal, but jaguars used to roam the United States often in many different areas. So those are still illegal, but we're fearful that whenever that last one passes away, that might be another animal that is highly trafficked.
Wow.
So
Is that because once it passes away, then they're not considered
native anymore.
native? I gotcha. So then the argument on the other side is going to be that for the people that are trying to traffic them and bring them in is going to be that they're going to try and regrow the population, or what's the argument?
No.
Not that it's valid, but
I've never been able to get into the mindset of someone that wants to buy those animals because they're always so aggressive towards us.
Right.
They're
Even
so
though
dangerous,
we approach
yeah.
them with, well, the people are aggressive towards us that
Oh,
have them.
okay.
Whenever we try to give them a better home, or we show them, this animal's supposed to weigh 600 pounds, yours weighs 220.
oh wow,
They're supposed to have fur on their whole body, which is common sense, and your animal does not. We can move this animal to a place where they get a full acre of space. You give them 10 feet by 10 feet in your backyard. They're very aggressive towards those things, and they get very defensive about things, and the conversations don't go well, and those animals are deemed to be property. So imagine taking someone's property. Like if I try to come take your car right now,
Oh, yeah.
how would that make you feel? So that's the way that they look at it.
Yeah, but there's obviously something different about your wiring in your brain if you want to own a lion or a tiger as a pet.
Yeah, I think humans like to dominate something that is an apex predator.
And don't those animals, big cats like tigers, they require like 50 pounds of meat a day, right?
So in the wild, they don't eat every day. So I know in sanctuaries, they usually feed them anywhere from 12 to 40 pounds a day. But they'll eat one day, skip a meal one day. They'll get side treats and enrichment and things
You just
like
think
that.
about the cost of that, though, if you owned one of those animals.
Yeah, but see, this is not a problem of the wealthy. So the elite people are not buying these animals. Most of the time when people buy these animals, they are middle-class people. They're people that live in apartment complexes. They're,
oh wow,
Apartment complexes?
Wow.
Yeah, so they're not people that are buying these animals. I mean, the price of a pet is supposed to be indicative of how much it costs to take care of that
Yeah, to
animal.
Right.
feed it. Yeah.
And you can get tiger cubs for $1,000, $1,500.
cheaper than my dog.
Cheaper than
Yeah.
a French bulldog.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
there can be, and all these animals, if you're an elite person and you're wealthy and you have a lot of money, you might buy one that is deemed to be a full Bengal tiger, even though they're not. But you might pay $50,000 for them, but those people are not as common as the people we're seeing that are making $50,000 a year.
Right.
They don't have $10,000 a year to spend on just food alone. They don't have $75,000 to spend on one habitat because they don't even make that an entire year. They're just draining their resources for this dream, and the animal is suffering. And those are the animals that we're rescuing in private ownership the most.
That's the biggest
And
problems.
I would guess a hungry tiger would be a dangerous thing to own, right?
Yeah, I mean, whenever we did a disaster protocol for our property, and they said, we talked to the Big Cat Alliance and we talked to different sanctuaries, and the county was worried more along the lines of, if the power goes out, can you still have a generator that gets the electric fence to work? And I was like, no, we're going to have all of our stuff going towards the freezer and the cooler, because as long as that cat is fed, they're not going to try to get out and do anything.
That makes sense.
They start digging and doing strange things if they're hungry. So yeah, I mean.
So as long as they're happy and they're fed, they'll stay there.
Yeah, as long as they have enrichment and they have cognitive stuff that they can do on a daily basis. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So is that protocol that you're talking about? Did some of that arise like out of some of that crazy guy that released his in Ohio or something? You remember that?
Zanesville
Oh
incident?
yeah.
Yeah. Is that part of where those protocols come from, or that fear, or is that just these protocols were there prior to that?
No, there's really no protocols in place right now, other than the fact that sanctuary owners get together once a year and they kind of share ideas and say, this is what works for us, and they take it very seriously. But the federal government is not regulating much of anything right now, which is unfortunate.
That was my next question.
Yeah, currently we're trying to get a bill passed called the Big Cat Public Safety Act. So that would make it illegal for people to breed animals in captivity unless you were part of something called an SSP, which is a species survival plan.
Yeah.
Animals that are bred in captivity for a genetic bank, so that if the Bengal tiger really went extinct, we would actually be able to put a real Bengal tiger back out into the wild, teach them how to hunt. And then PMP, which is population management plans. So those would be the people that decide, these are the animals we have in captivity in this catalog. This is what their genome is. These are the places that are hurting right now in terms of ecosystems. These are the places we're going to try to go and put these animals in right now. The Big Cat Public Safety Act would remove all these animals from people that are breeding them constantly, roadside zoos that are traveling,
Right.
circus acts that are using these animals as forms of entertainment, defanging them, declawing them, using negative reinforcement to try to get them to do various tricks. And that is the only bill currently right now that can positively impact the big cat crisis in the United States, which leads us to Tiger King.
Yeah.
Initially Tiger King was supposed to be like a Blackfish documentary. So the documentary that exposed SeaWorld for all of the horrible abuse that the Okras were facing at the time.
It's terrible.
There was this film, Tiger King, was supposed to be, what can you do to get the Big Cat Public Safety Act passed? What can you do to cut down on the crisis for the big cats that are in captivity right now? Where are these animals coming from, and where are they going, more importantly, whenever these people get rid of them? And it turned into something completely different. So I appreciate you guys having me here so we can get real information out about the fact that this bill still needs to get passed.
Definitely.
So right now, the bill has gone through the House of Representatives and is currently in the Senate. It is the first time it's gone through the House of Representatives, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a big step.
Yeah, if you're not doing what you do or a biologist, then you shouldn't have anything to do with big cats. It just seems very reasonable.
It does, and it's not.
It's like giving people permits to have nuclear weapons or something. Not quite that bad, but it just doesn't make sense for me to be able to go out and buy a wild animal like that.
Yeah, I mean, you not only put yourself in danger, but you also put people around you in danger as well. And we try to share ideas with people about, we rescued, or we were part of a rescue for 2 lions, where the gentleman passed away, and his will had that these animals were going to go to my elderly mother. She was in her 80s. She's terrified, and you have to think about other people as well.
It's crazy.
In that instance, or if this animal ever escaped, and the harm this animal could cause. But the Zanesville accident, or the Zanesville situation, where the animals were released and the gentleman shot himself in the head and committed suicide.
Yeah.
The only thing that did was get laws passed in Ohio. It did not
And
go
all the
further
animals
past that.
were shot, correct?
Every single animal was shot except for a few that were not released, and those animals were rescued at that time.
Yeah.
Small mountain lions and a few tigers, but every other animal on that property was shot.
Yeah.
Every animal that was released that day was shot and killed.
It's crazy. And you were talking about Tiger King, but you were saying like the deviation, and I can see it. I watched it, and I think it was first 7 episodes. I think they released like a bonus episode, episode 8. I haven't watched that part yet. I'm curious to see what that is, but I wasn't gonna watch it because it just seems like trash, right? The way everybody was watching it seemed like trash. I'm like, the whole way they were marketing it, I was like, man, this is not something I want to watch. It's not going to benefit me mentally. I'm not going to enrich my life by watching this. But then I was like, you know what? I'll watch it. So I wanted to have some context to one. It's really crazy because we were planning on having you on before there was ever a Tiger King, right? So the fact that had we had you on prior to Tiger King, we probably wouldn't even be talking about it in this way, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So it's really an interesting thing. But when I watched it, it really, I felt like it turned into a drama, murder mystery, this whole crazy. I mean, like it's like watching a car wreck.
Well, from my perspective, it makes sense from the entertainment industry because it's really just a documentary about why people that are meth addicts shouldn't own tigers.
Yeah,
Right.
Probably.
Well, you haven't watched it, right?
I haven't seen it yet, but I know the premise of it.
Yeah.
And I'll probably watch it. But I just, to me, I look at that as it's just a form of entertainment. It's not. It has no important message to it. You know, it's just a. They're capitalizing on white trash people that do a lot of meth and got in the tiger business.
I mean,
they were in a business they had no business to be in.
They talk about this much. I mean, I don't know.
But I'm sure there are people that were good people in the documentary that unfortunately got caught up in that crazy documentary.
I don't know, what, 5 minutes out of the whole thing? I don't know if you've watched it, but maybe 5 minutes of the whole thing they talk about.
I had to watch it after I got, we got so many questions and
You
our
had to,
donors
yeah.
were concerned. And that I think the message for that film was that every person that's, with big cat facilities are crazy.
Yeah, and that
was the other side of
problem.
it. Yeah, it said all big cat owners are crazy. Like that.
Oh, it did say that?
Oh, it did. Yeah.
Oh,
The first
wow.
sentence I think of the film was
they're all off or they did that, and then they did a few other things though.
But is that referring to people in the general public that own big cats? More so.
These guys are going after sanctuary owners, zoo owners, roadside zoos, and they lumped so many phenomenal organizations in with so many awful ones.
That's a problem.
And it was very tough for the general public to figure out who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And Joe, the gentleman Joe Exotic, he's just such a charismatic character. He talks about a gun-toting redneck as homosexual, and he's just so many different things together. And they talked about how he tried to run for president and how he tried to become governor. And,
well, he does a lot of meth too, right?
Yeah.
So he's like a narcissistic.
A lot of drugs
meth
on that property.
Yeah.
Whenever he lost that lawsuit to Carol, he was taking his items that Carol had potentially won in that court case and throwing them up in the air and shooting at them and saying, "You're never going to get my stuff." I mean, there was some serious mental issues there that were not addressed. That person should not own a gun, let alone big cats, an entire facility of big cats, where he is allowing the general public to interact with them. And they pegged Big Cat Rescue as being this awful organization, but, and I know Carol and Howard very well. I've been to their property before, we've had dinner together, and phenomenal people. And they made it seem as though that they were doing something bad. They sued Joe for $1 million because he was abusing animals, but they made it seem as though they were trying to shut down all good sanctuaries, and they deemed Joe to be a good guy and Carol to be a bad person.
Oh, wow.
So it's very strange to see that. I mean, they showed a couple things they ended up doing was they showed the meat grinder that was massive in there. She had a meat grinder that was like $30 from Walmart.
Right.
That did 1-inch cubes. So that was not even on the property to try to make it seem as though she harmed her husband. And then they showed just the catch pen areas on her property instead of the habitat. So the area that they shift the animals into when they go in and clean the acres and acres of land. And Big Cat Rescue's property is far larger than what Joe's was, but they made it seem as though Joe had, they didn't show the 10-foot by 10-foot crates that Joe had lined up. They only showed the one habitat that he had that was actually full size.
Right.
So it's very strange that they chose to do the documentary in that way, to try and make Big Cat Rescue seem as though they were an unreputable organization.
So it's not really it's more like a docudrama.
It's definitely about factual. People, not about animals.
Yeah.
No, they I mean, it's like watching a train wreck. Like
someone needs to make a documentary that is factual about what you do. That would be.
They need to do a response to that one.
Yeah.
Something, that's what needs to come
Well, just something
next.
that's not dramatized like that. Something that's factual, shows the importance of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Of your types of charities and the problem with individuals owning big cats and that you guys are coming in and it's the same thing in Florida with snakes. With these pythons and stuff. People buy these snakes and they get huge, and they just let them out into the environment. And they're an invasive species. They're destroying Florida.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's so tough to control now, and I don't think we'll ever be able to.
no,
This is
it's
a massive
part of the
culling
habitat
ground.
there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Carolina Tiger Rescue in Pittsburgh, they rescued 2 tigers that were walking some highway near Charlotte years ago. So, and those animals had one of them had a patch of fur missing, so it indicated they were thrown out of a moving vehicle.
Wow. Oh wow.
And so this problem is big even in North Carolina, and North Carolina is one of the 5 states right now that has no laws against owning any big cat at all.
Yeah.
Is there a big problem with that here though? I've never heard of it being an issue here. That
Well, locally where I live on Lake Norman in Mooresville.
Mm-hmm.
So in that area, and I don't know how you feel about this, but like there's this place called Lazy 5 Ranch.
Are they still
I've
open
heard of
now?
They are. They
Okay.
are. But to my knowledge, and then there's one up near Troutman. So Lazy 5 is like more like a drive-through thing, but you're not allowed to interact.
Right.
I think don't the animals stick their head in your car?
Yeah,
or
they
something?
can. They can. Yeah. So I don't know.
You know, I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been invited there a couple times with some friends, and never got a chance to go. But yeah, I wouldn't have enough info to comment on that.
Well, it's just something for you to look in afterwards. That, and then there's one in Troutman, and you know, I think they've got a zoo. I don't know enough about them either to know. They've got a zoo fill, but they did have they had a baby, I think, tiger for a while, for like 2 or 3 months that they were doing Christmas photos with. Not this Christmas, but the previous Christmas.
Yeah, see, that is so dangerous to do because that one makes people want to go buy them as pets, so that fuels that people to go out and figure out where can I buy one of these animals.
Right.
And if you watch Tiger King, the one message you got is that these facilities don't keep all of them.
That's
so
right.
that raises the question of where exactly did they go?
So they're either being sold or killed or...
I went to a tiger rescue place one time. I won't say which one it was, but you know, I went years ago, like a decade ago at least, maybe over a decade ago, and we could hold the tiger cubs and stuff, and they were cute, but they're not like a domestic animal. They feel tough. Like the fur feels wiry. Like
Yeah,
you
they're
can
rough
tell this is
animals.
a really powerful little animal. Even the cubs were like this thing could jack me up, and it's a little baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all those facilities, I mean, this is such a huge market. So anytime that you can, you know, we know of facilities that's charged $600 to have like a 15-minute play session. So if you go in with like a family of 4, I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That generates a lot of wealth for people. But you can only utilize that animal for 16 weeks. So USDA doesn't allow you to use that animal after 4 months. That big cat might live 25 years in captivity.
Wow.
And so that raises the question of, you know, a facility that has cubs all year round.
What's
is a
the
facility
future of
that is
those
very
cats?
dangerous to
Right.
those animals because there's no way that they're keeping all of them.
They're purposely breeding the cubs.
What are they doing
For that-
to them? Likely, are they selling them or?
Yeah, they're selling them. I mean, Joe sold a lot of them. You know, there's a place in Thailand that shut down that recently opened back up called Tiger Temple, and you know, they marketed themselves as being monks and they were very peaceful people. And then whenever National Geographic and other larger entities investigated them, they found tigers in tiny little wine bottles for tiger wine. They found traditional medicine sections inside and bunkers where they were grinding tiger bones up and feeding them to people as some form of aphrodisiac, that this is something that's
There's a lot
going
of
to
weird
benefit
stuff
you.
like that around the world.
Wow.
It's very strange. And, you know, the fact that, and then there's people that start selling trinkets and fur coats and a variety of other things. And you have to imagine that those animals are coming from a place that is breeding them all year round. And
Right.
they have cubs that are the same age. You know, this is such an abusive practice. So it causes the mother to miss her cubs and that she thinks that they've passed away. So she remains in heat. So she is just a breeding machine for these people. She doesn't live very long, couple years maximum of a horrible life in a tiny cage. And if she dies during the mating process, they just put another female in there.
Wow.
And those cubs are starved so that you can do hey, would you like to feed this animal? Because if that cub is fed, then they're not gonna want to drink from the bottle that you're feeding them. So that's another horrible practice going on. So they're starving these animals. Cubs are supposed to sleep 18 hours a day whenever they're born, 18 to 20 hours a day. And this animal's up all day with lights in their face, and they're going to die in 6 months anyway. or
Wow.
be sold or shot and killed. And so
Right.
they are is a very abusive practice.
Wow.
So any facility that has cubs all year round, that's red flag number one.
Gotcha.
I should not support this facility.
Gotcha.
Good to know.
That's good to know because honestly, I will say this: I feel like the show that they launched, I feel like they probably convinced a lot of people to talk under the guise of it being in support of this bill, or like you said, like this thing's going to reveal this negative thing that's going on in the country. But I will say, at minimum, it got me. I'm like, there's a lot of craziness going on right now. So at least it may have brought awareness, even though I don't think that's what dominantly happened in the United States. I feel like the most part of this, people are getting this meth addict or meth infested place that this guy's married 5 people, and I feel like they've got all that,
Right.
and that's what all the memes and all the stuff. It's all about that, and less about the premise of what it was supposed to be. But I feel like on some level, it's got me asking and us talking about, well, what is a red flag? And that's a good point. The place I'm mentioning in Troutman, to my knowledge, they don't have them year round. They've only had it the one time. But I don't know. Now I'm curious.
Yeah. So anytime that you rescue an animal, I mean, no.
But they shouldn't have the human that petting that 15 minute that's I can see that, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to have a pet tiger.
Yeah, I'm sure those families leave, and the first thing to do is hop on Google and figure out where they can buy one from, and
They don't realize what that is, what that
No,
means. Yeah.
yeah, and the more and more the Big Cat Public Safety Act is talked about, and it would stop those people from being able to breed. And GFAS is an entity that is the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries. They forbid you from breeding. So any true sanctuary will not breed.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're not going to breed animals for lives in cages. They're going to rescue an animal that was already bred that has nowhere to go and give them
Right.
a place to be, content. And
Yeah.
they're essentially nursing homes for big cats, basically, sanctuaries. But sanctuaries are a very temporary solution.
Yeah.
So if I rescue, 1,000 animals in my lifetime and we have multiple facilities at the end of my life, we failed.
Well,
I mean,
until there's legislation to stop people from buying them, then there's no you have to cut that off.
yeah, there's no deterrence factor at all in place right now.
Because your facility, you have 50 some acres. How many big cats could you keep at your sanctuary?
So 1 acre is 208 feet by 208 feet, and we were going to do 4 animals per acre for big cats.
Okay.
And our small cat habitats are 30 feet by 40 feet. And it just depends on which animals get rescued together. If they're rescued in a group of 3, we'll keep them together. If they're rescued solo and they're very dominant and they don't want those interactions, we'll have them separated. And then we also have a portion of the property we're building for animals that are just so abused that they don't want anyone to see them on tour.
So you
Right.
guys could potentially sanction or provide sanctuary for 200 some animals
Yeah, pretty easily.
maximum.
So you were talking about, hey, if you get to the end of your life and you've successfully saved 1,000 animals, you failed. What was the next part of that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that we wanted, like when someone asked, like, what's your goal, what's your end game, is to go out of business. And we haven't even started yet. So if we can get successful enough to get the Big Cat Public Safety Act passed and allow there to be a real deterrence factor in place in the United States where these animals are not being bred anymore, they will still be bred illegally. But the influx of animals that are coming in, USDA will have a reason to actually investigate some of these organizations.
Right.
So no big cat facility should be there. And I've talked to different sanctuary owners, and me being the youngest one of that group, some of them have said, it would be such a privilege for you in your lifetime to come down here and tear down what I built, if it's possible, if we're successful enough. So no one wants to do this stuff.
Right.
And this is a necessity. It's not something that we enjoy doing. It's not something that is fulfilling to us because we're seeing so many animals being abused.
Right.
But it's an absolute necessity. So if 50 years from now we can shut down, then we were successful. That's a success. But if we are still getting tons of animals coming in, then we didn't do a good job of stopping it at the root. We're just a temporary solution.
Surely
Right.
by then that'll be. I mean, we have so much access to knowledge and information now. Even talking about the documentary and all the negative stuff that came out of it, you still are able to get accurate information out now because of the internet and
Right.
formats like this. So
Yeah.
hopefully that will encourage that type of legislation to prevent these things in the future.
We hope so. I talked to Howard Baskin on the phone. I'm sure you remember him from the
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
docuseries, and he expects that there will be a positive impact from all of this once things settle down and people stop talking about Carol versus Joe. And do you remember the scene where they showed the owner of ZWF, Mario, in there?
Yep.
They didn't talk about any of his animals. The only thing they showed was a 5-minute clip of him talking about cutting a dead body up.
Yep.
To promote the fact that, big cat people are crazy. They didn't talk about his facility. They didn't talk about anything about him. And so I feel as though once people calm down from the people aspect of it and they get back to the animal aspect of it, they'll be like, okay, now we know what we need to do to be able to help animals.
I feel like I'm sure they did it by design, but I'm betting that a lot of people are pissed about the way it came out. Some of the people that were involved because...
Oh, everyone's pissed that was involved.
Yeah. It sounds like they literally asked this array of questions over an extended period of time, and then they snuck in these little things, and they only took little bites.
They cut it a certain way.
And they cut it a certain way and only took little pieces to help portray this narrative that they were trying to, portray about all cat people and, big cats and all this other stuff.
Sounds like the documentary is about one bad guy, but they made all these good people look bad.
Yeah, especially, Big Cat Rescue is at the center. They're pioneers, so they're the ones that went after these people. And they had no fear of doing so, and they're just savages when it comes to you will not exploit an animal.
Right.
And, when it's one entity being interviewed and saying, we're the good guys, but there's multiple facilities that are breeding animals all year long. Animals disappear off their property. USDA is not investigating them properly. Whenever all of those entities come together and say, no, Carol's the bad person, Big Cat Rescue's the bad person, Howard and those guys are bad, it makes the general public believe that Big Cat Rescue, and the fact is actually bad. But it couldn't be further from the truth.
I think, who was it I saw recently interviewing a lot of these people, too, that may be a positive thing, too. It's a comedian. What's his name?
He played in Tommy Boy.
Yeah.
Him. What's his name?
David Spade.
David Spade, yep.
He's been interviewing a lot of these people, too, and I think maybe trying to get out some of the truth.
Yeah, so someone sent me a link to one of those. I haven't watched it yet, but I know that some celebrity posted that David Spade should play Joe Exotic in a film. And, now they're creating, Halloween merchandise for Joe.
Yeah, that's actually what I was getting ready to say. You're going to have... The negatives to this are all the memes and all the crap. I think that's what's going to happen. This Halloween is going to be overrun with it. I feel like that's the real negative is...
Well, he is a funny character. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
there's a lot of humor in who that person is.
Oh, yeah, he's an excellent, just charismatic individual that plays the victim so well. I mean, it's insane to where you can convince men that are not homosexual to live with you and marry you because of the way in which you talk and the word choices you have.
Meth does crazy things.
Yeah, the drugs, too.
Yeah.
These people weren't stable, but... and I don't remember when he ran for governor, he got 24% or something.
Which is insane.
Of the population to vote for him. Some crazy number. I'm like, what?
Makes you lose hope in humanity.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on? But who knows, man? Unfortunately, there's a lot of fame that he's getting from this. But I still think at the end of the day, when people...
The truth will come out.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I hope so. But, the truth was in that docuseries as well, in bits and parts. You could...
Small, yeah. You had to really...
killing animals that they found in his backyard.
Yep.
And people saw all those horrible things that he did.
Yep.
And I mean, there were times where he was in the habitat and he shot his gun in the air. He told that tiger, "I will shoot you in the face, you bitch," and cursing them out and all this crazy stuff. It's insane how people have bypassed seeing all that stuff and saying, he's not a bad guy. And it's insane to me how well they did that documentary to make it seem as though he's the victim in all of this.
No, there's definitely a lot of crazy. I'm watching this guy. I'm like, man, this guy's about to explode. This guy's about to self-destruct.
Yeah.
Well, in some way, that's a successful docudrama because it upsets a lot of people. It gets people excited.
Yeah, it gives someone.
It's clearly nonsensical. I mean, I think, I hope people don't look at that as a great source of factual information.
Oh, they are. I mean, there's some donors that have been donating to us for years, and I started off selling our Wildcat Rescue T-shirts in my dorm, and the people that have been rocking with us for 7 years, they called me and they were like, "We're gonna stop donating. We need answers, and we need to figure out what's going on."
You've cleared that up, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
but the fact that those guys
Wow.
can see, I mean, they have watched us get a 56-acre property. They see us, and we have no debt. So that's another thing that they really like about it. All of our stuff is very transparent, and we let them know we don't want to have $1 million in loans when we bring big cats on that property because it can get nasty quick for those animals. So, and they knew all of this stuff, and they watched the fact that celebrities started posting about us. I mean, this is the same guy that called me when Leonardo DiCaprio posted about us one time and saying, like, you know, did you see this post? You were tagged in this? And, you know, he was getting excited about this stuff, and he called and said, hey, I'm confused. This documentary is powerful in a negative way.
Yeah, but it sounds like it'll get cleared up. And unfortunately, we live in a knee-jerk society, too, with cancel culture and all that. So everybody's afraid to look bad or support the wrong thing. But, I mean, I've known you for over a year, and we did a thing with you for a charity event that was very successful. And
oh, yeah, hashtag Chris Gordon, baby.
Yeah, at the Comic Dimension. And but I mean, you obviously have a lot of really good connections, you know, with your charity, and you have a good name, and like you said, you're transparent, so it's clear that you're doing the right thing, and you're getting the right message out. I think people sometimes they just jump to conclusions, and then you give it a little time, let the air settle, and then or let the dust settle, and then people, you know, they realize, okay, well, this was just misinformation. You know, everything's fine. It's not.
Yeah, see, we had some uncertainty within the county as well. So Columbus County was like, what have we gotten ourselves into? Some people, the general public.
Oh, yeah.
Not the head of economic development, not Gary Lanier, not the town council, not those guys that helped us to get there, because we did a very big safety presentation and 2 public hearings to get settled in there. But it caused a lot of uncertainty for the general public there, where they're like, man, are they going to allow interactions? Are they going to be breeding and killing animals? And you know, are they going to make people disappear? And, like, what all is going on here? And so, yeah, I do think that there's going to be some more negative consequences to the docuseries before there's positive ones.
Right.
How will your sanctuary work? Like, as far as visitors and stuff like that, how will the sanctuary function?
So this is the difference between GFAS and AZA. So AZA is really zoos.
Right.
And GFAS is sanctuaries. So zoos, you can kind of walk freely. But a lot of sanctuary owners that I've talked to don't feel as though they get any education out of that. They go for an entertainment type thing. The family comes out, you get some cotton candy, you get some food. There's some money being raised. So we talked about doing guided tours where you actually pay for a guide to walk you through the property in a safe environment, and they talk to you about, hey, this is this tiger that was rescued from Virginia. He has been declawed and defanged by this entity. He was in this circus for this many years. This is why you should not support animals in entertainment. Please support the Big Cat Public Safety Act.
Oh, great.
I feel as though that might be a better route to go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I like it.
And I was a tour guide at Carolina Tiger Rescue for 2 years. So I took 25 people into the compound as the tour guide assistant, and we talked about, you know, these are these animals. This is Raja. You know, he has these problems. These are the medications he's on. And people come there thinking that they're going to get a zoo-like vibe where they say, oh, we're so excited to see these animals. And they leave saying, man, we know the individual personalities of these animals and what they went through to get to a safe area. And we say, you know, there were 60 animals that this person had. We rescued 1.
Whoa, yeah.
And so
you take the glamour out of it, and you're showing the reality.
Yeah, we really break it down
great.
bare bones and show the skeleton of it and say, this is what's happening in the United States right now. And we want to educate people about different things that they can do to, like, I wholeheartedly believe that there's 2 things you can do to stop all the abuse. One, you can be an educated consumer. You can vote with your wallet. There's no more powerful thing that you have than being a consumer. So if you don't want to harm animals in Indonesia and Malaysia and all these areas where they're destroying tiger habitat, stop buying products with palm oil in them, because that is what's being bought and sold and burned. Different companies are going there right now and setting fires to protected areas, and then they plant palm oil trees there because it's a crazy food ingredient. It's in chips.
It's in everything.
Yeah, it's in everything. And
can you buy like certain brands that aren't a part of that?
Yeah, they've created one of the zoos created a palm oil app, so you can actually, it gives you a list of items that are safe to buy. There's no orangutan, elephant, tiger habitats were destroyed to make this product.
Okay.
But you know, none of these companies are going to go out of business.
No.
They will change the things that they do way before they ever go under.
Right.
And so being a consumer is very powerful. So educating people that, hey, you can actually save big cats by going to the grocery store and not buying something that was made from their homeland. And the second thing is you can be a responsible tourist. So if you, when you go to a place and you see tiger cubs there, you don't participate in that. If you don't fund it, people will stop. You know, there's a saying that it was generated in South Africa a while back that said when the buying stops, the killing can too. It is very powerful.
Makes
I
sense.
like that. Yeah.
It's very true. If you stop funding it, people will stop doing it.
Yeah, because there's no money in it. Yeah.
So
No incentive.
the combination of those two things can stop all the abuse, to where the Big Cat Public Safety Act wouldn't even be needed anymore.
Right.
But the fact that it is there, that law needs to get passed.
Well, knowledge makes things better. It makes people better. Because a lot of times people do things like go to circuses. They don't think about how those animals are treated when they're not performing. They just see this cool show and they're happy about it. But if they could actually see that animal being beaten to act a certain way, they would be like, oh, I don't want to support that. You know,
Yeah.
that's
And
not
you see,
cool.
you raise an interesting point. So everyone looks at the person that has the big cat as the expert. They will believe everything you say. They won't take anything you say with a grain of salt. They'll be like, man, this guy knows what they're doing. How much knowledge must be here for you to be able to hold this cub and breed this animal. I mean, multiple animals die in the breeding process. There's not much, you know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be able to do it.
Right.
So the people that are at that circus, for example, they say, like, you know, we're doing 10 shows this year. They did 10 shows in that city. And for some reason, people believe, yeah, these animals are going back to their sanctuaries after, you know, they're done jumping through fire hoops. And
Right.
Well, years ago, I wouldn't have known any different. You know,
Yeah.
like when I went to that big cat place I went to and held those cubs, I didn't know shit about big cats.
But you
It's
thought
like, I
that
just thought it was
person-
cool.
you
I
believe
thought they
them,
were
right?
experts. I was like, oh, this
Yeah.
is great. They're doing
That's the
something really
dangerous
nice.
part about it.
Yeah.
You know, it seemed very positive. You get your pictures taken with them. You see all these animals, and they just seem really cool. You know, I had no idea.
Yeah,
You know?
and so that's the dangerous part about it is if you had that big cat and you were walking around a shopping center and saying, hey, come get your photo taken, people will ask you questions. You can make stuff up. They'll
Oh,
believe
yeah.
it. They're not going to research that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's the dangerous part about it. There's a lot of misinformation going around. But it's pretty cool to see places like Turpentine Creek, which is a sanctuary, a GFAS accredited sanctuary in Arkansas, and they talk about metabolic bone disease in the animals that were rescued from those same facilities that were in the Tiger King. And they show the list of health problems that these animals had to show that these people were not experts in any way, that they were
Right.
actually abusing these animals. And PETA's done some great stuff to show that there were animals being passed around that had ringworm, that there were medications on site, but they were never given to the animal because the animal was going to be killed anyway.
Oh.
So I feel as though now there is good information being put out there, but it's still very dangerous.
Now, if this federal legislation gets passed, where it becomes illegal to purchase these animals, which makes perfect sense, the people that currently own these animals, will they have to give them up, or will they keep them until they decease, or till they're deceased, or
Yeah, so that's a great
how will it
question.
is there enough room to put them in other places, in sanctuaries?
Yeah, so typically if a facility shuts down, first off, this would not make them give up their animals.
Okay.
This would make them stop breeding. But we do expect that the smaller roadside zoos that have such tiny budgets that are just trying to make a living, they don't see this as abuse in any way. They just want to be able to make a living, and so these are not all bad people. They want to support their families and they like
Yeah.
animals, and they do this stuff without thinking about the huge catastrophic effect it has on big cats all over the world, or the ecosystems that are collapsing as a result of them breeding these animals in captivity and fueling the trafficking and the animal trade. We do expect that those animal places would shut down. And
Okay.
in other instances, the federal government has given facilities a full year to relinquish the animals as long as you provide the care. So what we expect to happen is that the animal sanctuaries that have a lot of money, like the big cat rescues and those places, would fund the care of those animals. There's phenomenal organizations out. You could wait a whole year to allocate these animals out to. So there will be time to build habitats, buy properties, whatever the case may be. But a lot of these facilities have a lot of land that hasn't been used yet. Carolina Tiger Rescue included, Big Cat Rescue, Turpentine Creek, Noah's Ark Animal Sanctuary. There's a lot of land out there. So I'm sure that we could get together and figure out where we're going to build habitats and things like that. But there wouldn't be hey, you got 1 week to rescue these 100 animals. There would be a long period of time before those animals need to be taken off that property.
From a business perspective, you talk about these small roadside zoos and stuff, and you said they're not all bad people. Like some of them may, I'm guessing some of them may actually take pretty good care of their animals. Is there a chance that some of those businesses could expand into a sanctuary and stop?
I don't think so. The
don't think so?
roadside zoos are so tiny. I mean, they're 5 acres of land, not a lot of space
Oh,
to be able
okay.
to build anything, and they might have 200 animals in a tiny area.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, they're breeding them to, and they're thinking that this is livestock for me.
Oh,
Right.
I
And
gotcha.
you don't look. Most people don't look at a farmer and say, "Man, you're a bad guy." And that guy's trying to support his family. So that same mindset, you gotta be open-minded and say they're not all bad people.
Yeah.
The people in the Tiger King documentary, those are bad people.
Yeah.
Those are people that were they had extraordinary wealth, and they still chose to harm animals. That's different than these tiny roadside.
A cow's
zoos.
a lot different than a tiger, too, though.
Right, but the same, you're killing an animal, breeding them, using them to make money. The whole idea is that you don't look at the farmer as saying, "Man, you're a bad person."
Yeah, but I think with the tiger, though, you're wasting. You're killing an animal, and then you're just wasting that animal. It's different.
See, they argue differently. They say, "Well, we're selling this animal to China, and we're going to be able to. They're going to make traditional medicine out of this animal, and my family's going to
Traditional
benefit
medicine.
from it." Yeah, they think that this stuff is very real. So
Yeah.
Bullshit medicine.
Yeah.
Isn't that sort of a in Asia? Those types of things are like something that the elite in society uses, sort of like just something to show off your wealth,
oh yeah, this is all
like
about
rhino horn
yeah,
nonsense and stuff like that.
Rhino horn is creatine. It's the same thing that your fingernails are composed of.
Yeah,
Right.
But they believe that that's going to cure so many different things. They use ivory from elephants, and
but it's more like just saying, "Hey, I have a lot of money, I can afford this stuff,"
Yeah.
right?
well, the people that buy the trinkets and things like that, the people that buy like the fancy tiger wine and say that, hey, 3 cubs were dipped in this bottle for a year and marinated, and now we're drinking this wine. Those people, absolutely. But there is a population of people that wholeheartedly believes
Oh, they really believe in
on
that
all
stuff.
economic statuses that, man, I'm sick. I didn't have my rhino horn medication this morning, and how can I get more of this stuff? And the fact that traditional medicine was such a big thing there's still people that believe that, even though it's scientifically proven that this harms you in
problematic.
insane ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
That there's a level of people that are very elite, high economic status that want to flaunt their wealth, and they will buy these products. But they lean more towards wine and products. They want to be able to have a massive tiger rug. They want to have, like the trinkets, or like we saw that one person was cutting the feet off of elephant and making them into trash cans, so they were using them as trash cans.
Wow.
That's what the elite is buying, to show the wealth. But if you are just getting traditional medicine, they can't really show wealth, because once you get it, you're gone.
Right.
That's a problem for all economic statuses that we're trying to stop right now, and it's so difficult to do because they don't.
Because there's money
believe
involved in
science.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big trade.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
interesting.
No, that is. There's a lot to it. A lot of angles I didn't even think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to make people believe that the economy is linked to this, that there's healthy ways to be able to do it. For example, places in India, Ranthambore, Bandhavgarh, Tadoba, Pinch areas, their main source of income in those areas is wildlife tours. And whenever someone books a safari out there, they might pay $6,000 to go out there for a week, but that lodging facility made money, the restaurants there made money, the shopping centers made money, the drivers there made money. So we want to promote the fact that
That's
there
great.
is a healthy way to do this, that you don't need to abuse animals to be able
Right.
to make a living off of this stuff. And there's sanctuaries right now that have $1 million budgets, multi-million-dollar budgets, and they haven't done anything shady, nothing wrong. Their animals are in great shape, but it takes more work to be able to get to that.
That spot. Yeah.
Well, what you're talking about doing makes me think of a safari. Like you're taking people across the property and showing them the animals and explaining each animal to them and stuff. That it's basically the same
I would pay more for that.
Yeah.
Like to take my wife, my kids, and we would go there, and it's educational as well.
You're
yeah,
one of the
right.
few that would pay more for that,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, and see that, and maybe that's part of the problem. But I would personally, I would pay more for that. I think that it's an educational thing. But I guess you're right. I don't know. I feel like I like that concept though.
Yeah,
I do too.
Carolina Tiger Rescue is the same way. So you can't just go walk freely there. But at different areas, I believe Turpentine Creek allows you to walk freely and to do guided tours.
Yeah.
Noah's Ark allows you to do both, and they have a lot of success with it. Jamma is the person that I reached out to whenever I left Carolina Tiger Rescue to expand my knowledge, and she was the founder of Noah's Ark Animal Sanctuary in Locust Grove, Georgia. And I went there too as just a broke college kid, and just mustered up enough money and used my credit card to get a hotel there just so I would be able to go. And she is the founder of 2 organizations, so she's adopted hundreds of kids out all over the place. She believes that she's going to change the world in every facet, and she has 250 acres down there. And, you know, I asked her, why do you let people walk freely here? And she's like, I was born with nothing. I had no money. Some people don't have any money. I don't want to charge them for coming in. And she does very well for herself there. So there's different reasons why there's facilities that do have the zoo-like vibe.
As long as it's safe for the animals, it should be fine, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, she's put double fencing around every habitat so that you can't physically touch anything, that you can't be near an animal. But there's a lot of people that come by, and she just has donation boxes set up and that say, you know, if you can contribute, great. If not, we appreciate you coming and spending time with us and our animals. And so I'm not against that.
Right.
But I do think that there's more educational. If you really want to make a difference and you're cause-oriented and you're goal-oriented, then I definitely think that wildlife tours being provided is an essential way to get people to understand that this is a very abusive thing, and to give them things that they can do in their everyday life. Because if you bring people together in a sanctuary or a zoo or whatever environment and then leave not knowing anything to benefit those animals, then you failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't accomplish anything.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be good for Columbus County too, because you know that area is a tobacco. I mean, historically that was a tobacco area, and they've lost. Columbus County's seen a lot of trade, a lot of business, and there's a lot of poverty.
There's a lot of poverty in Columbus County.
And so I think this is a really positive thing. It can turn into a really big and positive thing for that area too. So it's good to hear that Columbus County's got some positive stuff going on.
Yeah, I think that initially whenever I reached out to, we were getting ready to buy a massive property in Yancey County, and Gary Lanier's name popped up in a meeting. And I was just so interested in this guy because everyone had such nice things to say about him. He's the head of economic development in Columbus County. And, I went down there and it was all Southern hospitality.
Oh, yeah.
Let me take you out to a restaurant. Let's talk about this stuff. What do you need from us? First time in 5 years of me doing this where the county asks, what do you need from us? Every other place I'd ever been to was, we'll let you do it, but this is on you. And they kind of backed off from us as we were approaching the closing on a property. And I was just like, man, this environment is not healthy, because if they're going to give us some pushback. And
right.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. And, I had thought about reaching out to Gary. And whenever I reached out to him and we sat down, he was like, what do you need from us? We got some grants available. We have some additional funding. I don't know what your financial situation is, but we'll help you do it.
That's great.
And he convinced David Small, Carl Muellers Jr., and Willard Small to gift the buildings on that property. So we didn't pay for those.
Wow.
And this is the first time, and I could just tell that this is the vibe that I'm getting, that this is going to be a collaborative effort. So I do think that this will benefit Columbus County in a great way. And,
awesome.
They asked, do you want to have more money left for building? Can we talk about tax deductions? Because we are 501c3 for the people that are gifting the buildings and the portion of the property and things like that. It was the first time where I didn't have to dish out, $1 million loan, and they allowed us to do it where we could pay stuff off and have no debt.
Wow.
And we could pay our attorneys off for doing all the rezoning. We could pay, we could buy equipment on cash instead of having to rent things every single time, and it'd be a long, lengthy process to get stuff done. So, yeah, I'm eternally grateful to Columbus County and Gary Lanier for doing all that.
Will your facility be able to bring in a lot of tourism for the tours or those? Yeah,
we hope so. I mean, honestly, all sanctuaries are usually seasonal business because of the fact that weather is a big component.
Right.
But the fact that Andrew Jackson Highway is connected to our property and you have to use that to go to Myrtle Beach, we do expect that there will be 4 solid months where we can make large revenue. But we also want to own sanctuaries in other places too. So I don't want it to stop with just Columbus County.
Right.
Because I feel as though the people will be impacted there, and they'll say, the animals they have personalities, they're valuable. We should do whatever we can to protect them.
Well, if you're getting people to stop there in that area too, that should stimulate that economy there some as well, outside of the sanctuary.
Yeah, and that's really what Gary Lanier and I talked about initially.
Restaurants, stuff like that.
Restaurants, shopping centers, gas stations.
Yeah.
Grocery stores. They recently had a grocery store, Hills, shut down in Fairbluff, which is the area that we're in. And they've been impacted so adversely with hurricanes in the last 5 years. And there's another common question that we get is what happens if another hurricane comes? And most of the facilities that we've been around, they have had massive hurricanes and floods, and it's just a part of the business.
Right.
Because you want to be around wetland.
Right.
And anytime you're around wetland, you're going to have natural disasters potentially come by.
Right.
But yeah, I do think that we want to be able to build a restaurant on there. Our ordinance is phenomenal. It can allow us to rescue any animal in the world.
That's awesome.
So if we get a call for a giraffe, we have enough land and money available, we'll rescue that animal too. So there'll be no animal that we won't take in as long as we can have.
Wow. Is that property expandable? Could you buy more than just the 50 acres in the long run, or?
We've bought everything that's nearby.
Okay.
Aside from that, it's just wetland.
I see.
There's a 1 acre lot of land that I would be interested in buying, but we've also sectioned off a portion of our property to be able to sell to a local restaurant or whatever the case may be, less than 1 acre. But we do hope that we can help Columbus County get more economic tours, just a better financial situation for all those guys.
Definitely.
And we made it clear to them too that we wanted to take care of our staff and our employees, and that we will offer them health insurance, and we'll want to give them small life policies and actually a livable wage and things like that. So I do think it'll benefit Columbus County.
Okay. Well, you're talking about, Columbus County. You're talking about people traveling to Myrtle Beach. So I gotta ask you then for Doc Annell's place in Myrtle Beach, obviously, or right there outside of it.
Right.
Do you think you're going to have some impact? Because obviously you're en route to Myrtle Beach, it's heavily trafficked, heavily traveled. Do you think you're going to have some impact to kind of present the other side of that? Because I think Doc seems to be very intelligent and comes about it very differently, very different than
He's a genius.
Than Joe, Joe Exotic. But so do you think that that's going to have some impact on what he does there, or at least?
I don't know if I'll have much of an impact in my early years there. And we will choose to not talk about any specific person or entity,
sure,
and we'll talk more. The tours will be guided towards giving you resources to be able to identify what's going on. So there'll never be a time where we say, hey, this person is bad, don't go to this specific facility.
Right.
But we will make them aware, hey, if from a logistical standpoint, if you're breeding animals all year long,
right,
and you have tons of animals, there's no way to keep all of them. This is a red flag. You should be concerned about what your money's going towards. Your money's probably going towards the euthanization of this animal. And there's other people that were in that docuseries that they make animals disappear, and they take great pride from it and say, I don't euthanize animals. I don't do any vet care stuff. I shoot them quick, bat to the head. And
yep.
They've said things of that nature. So we do want to raise awareness about the fact that this is proper practices, these are improper practices, without giving any specific person
right.
or entity.
Right, yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, even I don't think you get anywhere by bad-mouthing, not your competition, but so it's good to I think you're trying to take the path of education. You're going to educate
right.
people on, and I like that you said, hey, this could be a red flag. So that you start to have that education. It just presents, let's say there's two sides to the argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, maybe people are only getting one side of it, and you being there as another resource might start to present a different side of this. Like, hey, even like with you just talking with us today, it starts to educate us and go, oh, I didn't even think about that.
Right, yeah.
Because there's several things I've done that I go, oh, it was fun, I enjoyed it, da-da-da-da. I didn't think about the potential negative, side of it.
Yeah, it's like people going to SeaWorld to see orcas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping highly intelligent animals in tiny facilities.
Yeah, or the
That
fact
should
that
be in the
a
wild.
lot of them came from the wild.
Yeah.
They weren't actually bred there.
It's terrible, yeah. But I mean, I never would have thought about that years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
But now with information, I'm like, oh, that's awful. It's like keeping a person in a closet for their whole life.
Yeah, I think in the coming years, I feel as though SeaWorld will have more and more problems with tourism, and I feel as though there's enough information out there where they have lost a lot of money.
Oh,
I think they won't have any more orcas, right? Haven't they changed their policies? Like Or maybe a law changed or something?
That I don't know, but I'm always very skeptical about stuff like that. For example,
Yeah.
the Ringling Brothers said that, we won't have elephants in our circuses anymore 3 years from now. That is what they're essentially doing whenever an entity or an organization comes out and says we're not going to do whatever bad practice anymore. It does three things. One, it makes the people believe as though they won, and it alleviates the pressure those organizations that are doing harm to animals feel.
Right.
The second thing they're doing is they've already identified that this is a very costly thing for us to do, and supporters that this is the one animal that they're saying that we shouldn't have, and our money's going down. So now we're only going to have these animals for 3 years. What does that do? It makes everyone want to go and say, we're never going to be able to see this elephant in a circus act again 3 years from now.
Right.
That boosts the amount of money they're getting.
Right.
So there's a combination of those two things. And the third thing is they'll do one thing that could be the smallest thing ever, but I remember one circus offered a sanctuary like $5,000 and said, put this towards the habitat of this animal once we're done with them. And they marketed it like, we're sending our animals to sanctuaries, and they just do a crazy PR run. So I'm very skeptical about
It's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
about stuff like that whenever the organization comes out and says they're no longer doing something years from now. I mean, it's just very strange.
Yeah.
Well, I think stuff. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
I think stuff that you're doing will fix a lot of these problems.
Yeah.
And also, once your sanctuary is successful and has a good name and it's causing a positive impact, you'll be able to open more sanctuaries and start to have this positive impact on society as a whole.
Yeah.
And other people will follow suit. There'll be other people that are philanthropists like you and that want to go out and make a difference and educate people. And it's easier to do today because we do have such an easy access to information.
Yeah, the second location for the one that we want to do is in California.
Oh, nice.
So the last time I was there, I've talked to, you met Jessica Parker Kennedy.
Right.
She's very passionate about pit bulls. Do you know who she is?
I know her vaguely, and mostly through Comic Dimension, through some of the posts and things.
Yeah, phenomenal human being. Just really wants to help out.
Yeah, really nice person.
Yeah, she helped us raise $5,000 last week with an auction because of the fact that people were not signing up for all of our donations because of the COVID crisis. And, I feel as though her being there, and there's a incredible human being, Anjali. She owns Jaws and Paws out there, and she's got a wolf sanctuary.
Okay.
And I was just looking around at the beautiful properties that are out there, and they've cost far more than what we got for what we got here. But, I feel as though that area would just thrive off of a real big cat sanctuary being there. And they're so open-minded. They're hustlers. I mean, I was looking at so many different facts about LA and the fact that you have to have such a high income just to break even at the end of the year.
Oh, it's an expensive place. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like someone that half-asses it in LA could come here and become a millionaire in Greensboro.
Yeah.
And like some of our top entrepreneurs here couldn't go there and hold a candle. So I was thinking, like, I want to promote animal welfare to those people that are so passionate that they would just live and breathe this thing. So, I talked to our board, I talked to Jess, I talked to a lot of our supporters, and I do want the second location to be in California somewhere. Now with COVID happening, I don't know how realistic that is in the coming future, but we have our eyes on a couple properties out there right now.
Okay, cool. Can you do anything in the Midwest where there's just tons of land, or is that too cold? Or
No,
the wrong
I mean
climate?
there's a phenomenal sanctuary in Minnesota, and they get snow basically all year round. And there's a phenomenal one in Russia. There's a phenomenal one in Canada where it's freezing, and yeah, you can have them there.
Okay, I was thinking of places like Montana and Wyoming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how realistic. I think it would be county specific. So
Well, you have to have the population, I guess, for the tourism aspect of it too, to fund the facility, right?
I don't know. I mean, we got to this point with no tourism, so we were one of the few that did that. But we don't want to rely on tourism to help keep us afloat.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Because, like, for example, right now, COVID, like, we would be deemed a non-essential business, and mandatory, the only person that would be able to go there is our vet and our keepers. So what would happen to us as an organization at that point?
Right.
And I feel like there's people way smarter than me that have tried to do this, but they weren't good enough politicians or managed money well enough. So I want to make sure that we do those two things. But I feel as though our donor base is going to get us through.
Okay.
and the money that I make at Banker's Life to be able to supplement this stuff and be able to put more money into it.
And I'm sure you get grants and stuff too, right?
Yeah, we currently have an $80,000 grant.
Okay, great.
Another one that Gary Lanier, the head of economic development, helped us get through Bettina Cox, Andrea, and Jennifer Jones at Workforce Development. And that is currently paying our staff right now. So
Awesome.
we can genuinely say that 100% of all the money that we've raised thus far goes directly towards the sanctuary, because even our staff is grant funded. So no one has drawn a salary. So if someone donates, they want to get their family's names on a plaque, and they're like, I got my wife one, I got myself one, I got my 2 kids one. They donate $1,000 for the Big Cat Habitat plaque. It's amazing to be able to look at them and say, all of your money's going towards the fence and the concrete and the posts that go in the ground to build this thing up. No human being is getting any of this money.
Right.
So yeah, I do think that grants and donations and continue to do fundraisers. I mean, we're going to do another fundraiser at the Comic Dimension,
Yeah.
and we're trying to get some other celebrities other than Jess to come by too, which we do think that we'll be able to get for the upcoming one.
Awesome.
So, and then we're trying to do, working with Scott Cole and trying to figure out something to do with the Ferrari Club, and trying to get some of the people that have a little bit more wealth to contribute towards that. And the Ferrari Club is very adamant about doing stuff to support charitable causes now, so we want to definitely be the front runner for raising
awesome.
awareness to those guys as well.
That's great.
That's awesome. I don't want them to get mad at me, but if I buy a Lamborghini, I'll try to help do something with the Lamborghini clubs.
Yeah, it's so crazy how close-knit all these organizations are. I mean, they're just very
They
big
are.
lovers of cars.
They
and,
are.
I went to VIR with Scott and got to see so many different people there. I mean, there were people that had, $20,000 sports cars that they souped up that were faster than the Ferraris.
Oh, yeah.
they just love the sport, and I feel as though that's a market that I really want to be in and be able to promote to those guys. And they're very genuine, kind people. And
That's what I've noticed. A lot of people had some type of misnomer or misunderstanding about people, but I feel like those people were dedicated and worked. Most of them worked really, really, really hard and sacrificed, delayed gratification to get to where they are. But they end up being, for the most part, most of them are really like genuine, caring. Like they've got things that are important to them. They put their money behind.
Yeah. Honestly, there's not an asshole among that group.
Yeah.
It's insane how whenever we go somewhere or like they roll up somewhere, everyone's like, "Oh, douchebags." But in reality, I mean, those guys donate millions a year to all these facilities.
That's right.
They take care of their staff during the COVID crisis.
That's
they're
right.
paying them.
That's
they're
right.
helping economic development. And Scott made a video the other day that said, "We're still hiring. If you need a job, let me know. I want to help bring people on." He's still bringing people on to Bankers. And he's such a nice guy. And it's just, they get a bad rep for no reason.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we're not currently hiring, but every one of our essential and core people, all of our people that have been with me 10 years, I think loyalty has to work both ways.
Absolutely.
So all of our people, they're not missing anything. I mean, we're trying to any essential business we have, obviously those things are operating, but all the other ones we're just trying to do. We're in it together, so it's a collaborative effort. Like, hey, we've got you guys. Obviously, we can't cover it forever. Financially, I just can't. But we have the ability to do things for weeks or months. So
Right.
we will. And I think there's a select group of people, and we're not billionaires. We're not mega multi-billion-dollar companies. So I mean, I do think that there are groups of people that are trying the best they can to take care of, the people. I think if you can afford to take care of your team, you should.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sad to see so many people that chose not to.
No, I agree. And I know some people personally, I'm not going to say any names. I know some people in some companies that have way more means than I do, or that we do, or any of our partners do. And they immediately saw this as an excuse to just, cut 80, 90% of their staff and just.
Well, fortunately, some of the unemployment options are pretty good right now for people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the business incentives are not that great. They backtracked on a lot of the relief efforts for businesses. A lot of small businesses will be hurt pretty badly.
Yeah, and we talked about disaster funding with our accountants and stuff like that, and I was shocked to see that there really wasn't much available per capita of employees that are currently there.
Yeah.
And the different sanctions that they were put on there. So it's strange. It's a strange time right now.
It started out as great.
I heard it was going to be phenomenal.
And
for
then
my account.
they
Everybody's
backtracked on it.
anymore.
No, it's not.
After
yeah.
everybody applied for it, they backtracked, said, "Oh, we're actually going to just do this."
Yeah.
And that's for a lot of businesses will go out of business because of that.
Yeah, I read through hundreds of pages. We spent time talking with accountants. I talked with attorneys. The problem was a shifting goalpost. You know, they said this is what they're going to do, and then
It's like a
changed.
PR scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was so much panic and fear that, hey, they presented this solution, which everybody excited about. And I felt better about it once I saw it.
I did too, yeah.
And then they shifted it. And then it got worse and worse and worse. And so now I think you're going to have a net effect. A lot of people that own small businesses had a lot of fear, say 2 weeks ago, and then it got relieved. It got temporarily put at ease, at bay, because they said, hey, we're just going to apply for these things through SBA.gov, et cetera, and we're going to have some relief. Well, then things shifted over the last week.
And a lot of people don't realize that shift occurred yet.
Most people we've talked to don't
most
even
people
know.
have not heard. They think they're getting the minimum $10,000.
That's right.
They're not.
Now you get $1,000 per employee you have.
Per employee you had as of
Yeah.
prior to January 31st.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, there's caps to how much can go to that employee. But imagine, and I hate to go down this path too far, but imagine a small business owner that, say, has 3 employees, and they rent a building, and let's say the building's rent is $2,500 a month, right? And utilities are $700 or $800 a month, and internet and power, et cetera. So just for a month, for not counting their employee, let's say it takes them $5,000 just to pay for that 1 month. And then let's say they've got those 2 or 3 employees at, let's say, another almost $2,000 a week for payroll. So for this period, let's say for an 8-week period to run that business, let's say it's $20,000 and they can get $3,000.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. There's not a relief. Really, it's not even a Band-Aid. So I think what happened is a lot of fear. A lot of people are like, oh, this is gonna work, and then they haven't figured out yet that there's still gonna be a lot of people who can go out of business.
Well, you look at mine and Chris's business, the Comic Dimension. That business isn't just killing it. It's basically a community investment.
Yeah.
I look at it as like
Right.
a contribution to the community. It's a cool place. People love it. It's just it's an awesome business because of what it is. I don't make any money from it. It's just a cool business, and we love it. And we actually had some good programs we were going to implement that we couldn't do because of this. But that relief money is not coming to that business, and it's really going to suffer. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to recover from this with that business. I mean, we will, but it's drastically going to hurt that business.
Yeah, well, specifically for the Comic Dimension, we'll do some stuff to get more people to come in, and
we'll have some good sales.
I do think that we'll have a good day whenever we'll talk together. Yeah. You, Chris, and I can go out. We can all go out and talk about what you guys need, and I'll help where I can with that. But yeah, it's sad, man. I mean, there's we have 5 employees, so it went from $10,000 to 5, and then it went from you might not get this because one of my guys was hired a month ago, and I was like, so he gets nothing? He's the most financially hurt person out of that group because he just got hired.
Yeah.
And
well, another thing too is that that was supposed to be forgivable if you use it for things like rent, utility, mortgage, even some types of equipment that your business may need. And then they changed it. They went back and said, oh, actually, it's only forgivable if you use 75% of it for payroll. But if you've got a small business like that, then honestly, those employees can be laid off and make just as much money on unemployment right now because the unemployment benefits are pretty good.
Yeah, they'll make more on unemployment.
And the business and the $10,000 will be just enough money to keep the business above water. To pay the rent, pay the utilities, any other equipment needs they have. For those two months minimum, maybe.
Yeah.
This is a big change, and I think we'll see 50% of small businesses go under.
Yeah, I agree. I was on the phone with one of our huge donors from Canada, and she told me that they were getting $2,000 a month for the next 4 months. Everyone in Canada was getting $2,000, plus they have universal health care. So she was like, yeah, we're terrified here, but we can't imagine what you guys are going through.
Yeah, they're better than we are.
in the United States. And, I saw so many different stimulus packages where everyone is getting for the next 3 to 4 months money. And I feel so disappointed in our government for giving a one-time check of $1,200 to people and then having a $2 trillion stimulus package. And I'm very confused as to where the money's shifting back and forth.
Well, hopefully the PPE problem will be resolved soon, and we can switch directions and
the protective equipment.
Yeah, for the hospitals and medical workers. And
We need to get back open. We got to get in a safe way, get everybody back open. But so think about this from a capitalism point of view. If you owned a business prior to this, and we've had booming economy year after year after year after year, so these businesses and unemployment's at record lows, right, across the United States.
Correct.
Which means at some point it was going to dip. Right, it's going to happen.
Right, it has to, yeah.
It has to. This wasn't the reason we thought it was going to dip. Obviously, this wasn't planned for. But now, a lot of corporations have had an excuse to lay off the lion's share of their staff, if not everybody.
Yeah.
And they're going to be slow to rehire. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if everything starts back up in 2 weeks or 30 days. It doesn't matter because these companies are not just going to start. They're not just going to rehire everybody. And the incentives that went to the business are not substantial enough to let them hire. So I think what's going to happen from a business perspective, not us, but from a lot of businesses, I think that they're just going to let their people continue to draw unemployment and to continue to get the small benefits that they can get through the government. I think they're going to be slow to rehire.
More so the large small businesses, like the ones that are right there under 500 employees.
I think so, yeah, those, yeah. And I've had people been with me for 10 years, and like I said, they're, as far as pay-wise, their lives haven't changed any at all.
Yeah.
But I got to imagine that it's going to be I think we're going to have really high levels of unemployment for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
I think it'll definitely come down, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere back to where it was in the next, honestly, I think it'll take years to get back to where it was.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how serious this is yet. I think the next couple weeks, they'll start to realize, oh, wait, maybe I won't get my job back, or maybe my business is going to fail.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that relief money I thought was going to come in. And that's where it could get a little dicey with society for a while.
Yeah.
You'll see crime rates go up a little bit and stuff like that. But hopefully it won't be too crazy, but we'll see.
Yeah, I do think that eventually, I had a friend that just graduated. He got a job he got a computer science degree. He got a job starting salary was around $70,000. Kid's been broke his whole life. He's very excited about it, and then they took that away too. And
at least he's young.
Yeah. And I remember the conversation afterwards I was very honest with him, and I was like, brace yourself for this stuff. Try to help him financially a little bit, and just told him, I can give you this right now, but don't think that this is going to be available for you. Start looking elsewhere. And
Yeah.
I definitely think people need to be proactive as possible. But yeah, I don't think the economy is going to, it's insane because every election year there is always a dip.
Yeah.
And there's always and Neil and I talked about this a little bit whenever we were on the phone, like the swine flu election year, Ebola election year, avian flu election year, SARS, which is another type of coronavirus election year. I did not expect this to be as bad as it is, and
No one did, yeah.
And I was 100% wrong to assume that this was not going to be as bad as this is.
Right.
And we had to cancel the event at the Comic Dimension 2 days before it happened.
Yeah, I know.
And it was just insane how quickly information was coming out. It was, hey, people, no more than 1,000 people can gather at the beginning of that week in one area. And we were like, oh, we're fine. 3 cases in North Carolina, we're fine. And then it turned into, hey, 10 cases, 100 people. No more than 100 people can gather. And we were like, man, we had 550 people come to this fundraiser 6 months ago. Should we talk about canceling it? And so we were like, well, we can do some limits. And Jess didn't want to cancel. And I was like, man, I'm just so confused as to what to do. Our board didn't want to cancel. And then all of a sudden our board called and they're like, you gotta shut it down. And it is just insane to me how quickly information is being released about this stuff. So I bet everything we know about COVID-19 right now will be just trash information compared to what we're going to get.
Oh, yeah, there'll be a lot of studies
from now.
done over the next few months.
And I don't think until all the information comes out, the economy can go back to normal.
No, I think that the fact, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but in my mind, I got to go. You say, oh, something always happens election year. It's you just wonder about the politics of everything and how it plays out, and the fact that it is an election year. Even if there's going to be a recovery after this, and I don't know if they would technically classify as a recovery, but even if there was going to be one, it's going to have limits itself because there's also this unknown as it's an election year.
And
right?
politicians don't want to make a decision that makes them look bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the main
everything's
thing
going to be very cautious.
Yeah, the main thing that hurts every single election year are pharmaceutical companies, because every president that's elected says that we're going to redo all of your health care. And that causes so much uncertainty for people, and they're like, should I go to the doctor? Am I going to get a bill? And so pharmaceutical companies aren't making money. I feel as though...
They're making money.
Well, not as much.
But not as much.
So I feel like it's very strange that a virus in previous years always comes around, ends right after election is ended, and pharmaceutical companies have been able to profit off of that, and they have a little gestation period where they don't make a little bit of money. I feel like that was very strange. So my mindset went towards that. Like, hey, COVID-19 won't be as big of a deal.
Well, a lot of the experts, a lot of scientists have actually said that they should have already had some type of vaccine that would help with this, but there was no money in it back when they should have made it, and that's
Doesn't that just boil
it's
your blood?
unfortunate. God,
It does.
and also our medical system should have had plenty of PPE for this to happen, because I've seen scientists and read scientists talking about this for years, saying there will be an epidemic, there will be some big virus that comes and causes this type of problem, and if we were prepared for it, it wouldn't have had nearly the impact that it's had.
Yeah, and I think that, as a conservationist, as an environmentalist, looking back through history, the main threat to humans or to any species is a virus.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But also, I play around with the stock market a lot, and we do a lot of insurance and a lot of financial stuff. So I also see the politics that go along with this. I was like, man, which one is it?
Yeah.
And do you remember the conversation we had where I was like, this is what this is? And you were like, no, this is a big thing. Just wait a couple weeks. And like, Neil whooped my ass in that conversation. And he was right. And so, yeah.
There was a lot of false information coming out there, like saying masks don't work and stuff like that, because there was a shortage of PPE. They were trying to say that masks don't work so people wouldn't buy them.
Yeah.
Which
this is nuts to
I
me.
think I understand, but be honest. Be honest with us. Say masks do work, but please don't buy the N95 mask because our medical people need them. Create your own face masks, wear masks. But
how many people do you think would have actually listened to that?
That's true. Yeah, but it's still better than lying to people.
It is.
I
But
think.
I mean,
But the bottom line is they should have had plenty of masks. It's the medical community. They should be prepared for these types of things because they can happen, obviously.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about, I did a talk on our social media platform when people were asking questions about once a tiger was diagnosed with COVID-19, everyone was like, oh, all big cats are going to be, so the coronavirus things don't harm animals anywhere near as much as people.
Well, animals are tougher than people anyway. But
yeah, so I did a long IG live for about an hour, and I talked about all of the cataclysmic events of the past and how viruses played a part in that and how this was different from that. For example, whenever the meteor hit the Gulf of Mexico and dinosaurs were wiped out, it took years for them to be wiped out, and the main thing that happened was a virus went around after that as well. So the bad meat that animals were eating, the toxics, everything that was happening from acid rain to tsunamis, the world going up in blaze, volcanoes erupting, all that stuff was viruses.
Well, it got really cold too, right? Because of that, and that's why mammals took over the planet, because they were warm-blooded, right? Isn't that part of it?
So initially when it hit, the Earth was like a fireball for several
right then.
years.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's been massive.
But then it blocked out the sunlight too, so it got really cold, right?
Yeah, but everything was on fire. It was a very strange thing. It was a dark time, and the evidence shows that a virus is what killed most of those animals. That a lot of them survived for many years, and they were able to breed. But the viruses that were going around were killing them left and right. And that is the type of virus that can harm a mass population of animals. COVID-19 will not be one that harms a mass amount of animals.
Right.
And so just trying to get people, because what ended up happening was a lot of people were dropping their animals off at shelters, saying, we don't want to get sick from them. And I was like, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Because there's no research at all that indicated that an animal could give you COVID-19. And there's still no research as of right now. And that could change 5 minutes from now, but as of right now, when I walked in here, there is still no evidence that suggests that a dog can give a human being COVID-19.
Yeah, domestic animals. The person that was originally suspected to be infected in that Wuhan market was, they believe they were infected by a live animal.
The bat. that they potentially ate.
Either a bat or those armadillo-looking animals.
Another highly trafficked animal.
Yeah. It always has something to do with the improper treatment of animals. These types of problems.
Yeah, I mean, avian flu was similar.
Yeah.
SARS was similar. I mean, yeah, the live animal markets especially.
Yeah. Now there's a speculation about Wuhan has some type of molecular lab or something there, or bio lab, and there's some speculation that something could have leaked from that lab, but who knows? There's no way to know that now.
Yeah, I mean, I know
maybe years from now we'll know. But
I don't know anything about that, but I do know that in the United States, New York is being hit the hardest, and they're
so densely populated.
They are still live animal markets in New York.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And it just blows my mind that the United States is allowing that to stay when we have it's proven that
it's problematic.
Wuhan, that was what caused COVID-19.
Yeah, it's clearly a problem.
And the fact that whatever bad is going to happen in New York is a result of that still staying open. And people are not able to connect those dots, and it's really sad.
Well, I think in New York, it's just there's so many people there. You can't avoid people in New York, and you think about a virus like this that lasts longer on a surface. People can have it. They're most contagious when they have no symptoms, and they may stay that way for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Before they get sick. So they're touching all these surfaces, breathing on everything, getting these particles on all these surfaces. And I mean, when you go to New York, I don't even like to open the door because that 10,000 people have touched that door in the past hour probably. It's just there's so many people in the subway. I mean, everybody uses the subway there. It's just it's a germ factory.
Yeah, and I think years from now there'll be something that comes out about the live animal markets that were there and the people that participated in that. And it is not a highly sought out thing in New York. So it's very strange to me that business can survive.
Strange, yeah.
But yeah, I do think that there will be a connection years from now that comes out about the fact that there was a far lower immunity to that because of the fact that people contributed towards that.
Well, I think they're already saying that, though. I think that...
it's not something people are buying into just yet.
Yeah.
I mean, the conservationists that I've talked to, they're very skeptical about it, and they go more towards, New York is a place where it's very tough to avoid people. But there's also other areas that are very tough to avoid people, and no one has been hit as hard as New York. And... there's not many live animal markets out right now. I know in
well, LA's done pretty well, or LA's done very well based on their population.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
It was scary flying back from LA because I was there in the midst of the whole.
Well, I was in New York.
I know.
Like right before it happened, I had that back procedure, and I was like, "Gosh, I don't want to be here." I didn't leave my hotel. I was just terrified,
But yeah, I don't think it's going to harm animals anywhere near what other viruses have shown to do. I mean, there was a virus that spread in the Gir National Park in India, where there's actually lions in India, and roughly half the population was wiped out about 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And scientists had to go in immediately and stop. Like, that's the type of virus that will harm mass amounts of wildlife because you can't talk to them, you can't get them to social distance, you can't get them to really do anything. And if something dies, a scavenger comes by, they will eat it, and that thing will...
that could damage the whole ecosystem,
Yeah, that's the type of virus that people are treating COVID-19 as because of one animal in Belgium being diagnosed with COVID-19 showing no symptoms, one dog in Hong Kong being diagnosed with COVID-19 showing no symptoms, and the fact that this tiger could have possibly just had an upper respiratory infection and still tested positive because animals can get it.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that those are the things that are causing the symptoms.
Now, if the animal has it, though, I mean, how could they not transmit it to a human? Because if they have that virus in their body and they're coughing and spreading those particles from that virus, how could that not be transmitted to humans?
So they don't believe that these animals are actually getting COVID-19 and having it in their system. They believe that the humans around them have it, and they're coughing and sneezing, and they're getting droplets on their fur. And if an animal licks their fur, like a cat, for example, they clean themselves, that they will ingest it. But if they do a throat swab or they do like any form of swab, those droplets will be on there. So therefore, they will test positive. But that is the human that's near them testing positive. It doesn't impact animals anywhere near as bad as it does to humans. So the dog in Hong Kong had no symptoms for 2 weeks and was isolated. In Belgium, the dog that was diagnosed there had no symptoms, but both of the people that had those animals were also positive.
But they had it. Okay.
Yeah, so they believe that those animals, dogs like to sniff things and lick things.
Right.
It is a part of their tissue, but it is not something that they actually have. It is just a part of their outer layer. It's not something that they've internalized.
Oh, I
so, I don't believe that COVID-19 will.
So it has no receptors to attach to in the dog, but it did in the tigers, though, right?
It did show. I mean, the loss of appetite is very common among big cats.
Okay.
It is the number one thing that happens for an animal to show, even in domestic animals. Whenever, even in birds, if you feed them and they don't eat anything all day, you're like, man, something must be wrong. And upper respiratory infections are very common too. So I'm skeptical about saying that this animal was impacted by COVID-19, because there's other animals at that zoo as well. They have a mountain lion, they have a snow leopard, and they're all in close proximity to each other, and the same keepers are taking care of those animals as well. And the fact that the same utensils are being used there and those animals were not diagnosed or showing any symptoms, it makes me believe as though the animals that were near Nadia, the Malayan tiger, and she did have an upper respiratory infection, that would have gone towards the animals that were in close proximity as well. I bet you every animal there would test positive for COVID-19 if that one keeper was there and those animals were being, using the same bowls and things like that. I don't believe as though, I feel as though it would have been catastrophic if it actually impacted animals.
Okay.
At this point.
Gotcha.
Interesting. So way back to your sanctuary and funding, how much money do you guys actually need to complete the whole project, to be fully functional and operational?
We believe we're around $400,000 off from opening day.
Okay.
And that gives us enough to where we have enough to pay vet bills, and you got to have a huge buffer of money. So $400,000 worth of construction. We have buildings on the property right now. We have a 10,000 square foot building on the property that is very damaged. The roof is bad on it, but everything else is good on it. The septic, sewage, water, plumbing, all that stuff is good. Electric is not. So we have to look at how much it's going to cost to remediate that building, but it's not something we need to do before we open. So whenever someone asks us how much money do you need, it's very vague based off of what we want. For example, if we want 12 habitats to be built on that property, it's going to be $400,000. If we want 20, then it could be doubled. So it really depends on what we want the opening day to look like.
Right.
Most sanctuaries started with one habitat and one animal, and it's a tough thing to do to survive once that's happened, because the staff is needed and that animal's not generating enough revenue. So we want to make sure that our site plan shows, and I can send you guys the PDF of our site plan after I leave here.
Definitely.
But it shows a bird aviary, it shows 4 big cat habitats, and it shows 6 small cat habitats on there right now.
And you're going to do it in phases, correct? So you'll do
That's phase 1. That's
that is phase 1. The whole.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we want to be able
Great.
to do. And we're building 1 big cat habitat and 1 small cat habitat about 5 acres away from there, where no one will be able to go. And those will be animals that have just been so severely abused that they don't want to see people. They don't trust people. They will never trust people again. They're terrified of us. They just want to live the rest of their life in peace. They want their enrichment every day. They want to be able to, you can do some fun stuff with those animals to get them to cognitively engage. You're going to give them the respect that they deserve. We used to put chickens inside of pumpkins near Halloween, and we would hide the pumpkin there in their habitat, and we would shift them over to a different area, and then they would hunt for their food, essentially, and it gave them such a sense of pride, and they would be very happy and frolicky. So we can do some various things with those animals, but it's very tough to get that animal to trust humans again.
Is it hard to deal with those types of animals? I'm sure it's dangerous.
No, because once they're in the habitat, there's safety protocols, there's shift areas, there's a very low gauge fence wire that's being used there. There's a roof over one section of the habitat, so you can shift them there. It's 4 feet deep. The fence is in there. Concrete's used. There's an electric fence. So it's very difficult to get that animal to find a way out of there to harm a human being.
So most incidents happen when people aren't paying attention or do something wrong, right?
I mean, most instances happen when you're foolish enough to go in with that animal,
Oh,
like you saw in
Yeah.
the Tiger King docuseries.
yeah,
That is the most dangerous thing you can do.
yeah.
But yeah, so if you follow safety protocols, I mean, this is a very safe environment. I've been alone in sanctuaries by myself, being the only person there walking around at nighttime at multiple facilities, and I've never felt like I was in any danger whatsoever. The tiger habitats are 16 feet tall for the fence.
Yeah.
and there's a section of a shift area that's going to have a roof over it, so that if we do get hit with a flood, we can shift those animals over into that roofed area where there's elevated areas. They can get out of flood water, they can be out of the elements, and they can have everything that they essentially need to be able to survive there. For example, in that area, the flood level got to about 2 feet, so we'll make sure that the den boxes are elevated far above 2 feet to 5 feet, so that the animal can live life normal. And animals don't care about water. They swim in it, they do whatever they can. So yeah, I do think that we will be able to. I don't think there's any danger in there unless
That's
you're
good.
foolish enough to open that
Unless
gate
you put
and
yourself in
walk
danger.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things on one of the on the series that came out on Netflix, or maybe it was a video after that I was watching, but it said these big cats will kill you, they can harm you, they can kill you, and even if they like you, like they can, if they're interacting with you shouldn't. And basically his whole thing is you shouldn't be handling the animals, and you shouldn't be interacting with them in that way. So like being in there with them, sitting with them, trying to wrestle with them or play
They're so
with them.
powerful.
Yeah, all that stuff that
Joe
that Joe was doing is like
Yeah.
you shouldn't be doing that. And even if the animal likes you, it can kill you just because it likes you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean they're
Still has instincts. It's wild.
massive, and I mean, everyone has had, every keeper that I've talked to, every sanctuary owner has had like their oh shit moment of where like you realize how insignificant we are in terms of getting away from these animals if they ever got out. I remember I was walking around Carolina Tiger Rescue's property when I was a tour guide, and I was taking some notes, and I was making some posts for social media because we had started our organization at that point. And this tiger was, like, I was near the fence. I was about 8 feet to 10 feet away from the fence. And this tiger had to be at least 100 feet away from me. I dropped my pen. I see this tiger, head down, laying down. She's not paying any attention to me. I bend over to pick the pen up, and she is at the fence. I did not hear her. I was down there for a second.
yeah,
And that makes you literally like, man, why the fuck would you ever go away from that?
That's a monster.
Yeah, and they're beautiful, they're majestic, but you gotta give them respect and understand that it is not good for anyone. I mean, it's mandatory euthanization for them if they bite someone, and you just should not do those certain things.
I mean, we're animals too, but we're soft and weak.
Yeah,
those
and
things.
I was walking around that property like, yeah, I mean, this is cool, this is fun, and that just makes you feel like this. I did not hear her.
wow,
That's crazy.
She walked over twigs so quickly, and there was a pile of stuff there, and she got to me so fast. And if that fence wasn't there, I'd be dead.
yeah,
And I bent down to pick up a pen. Less than a second, I looked down, and she was not even looking at me at that time. So it's insane to see like how their instincts are. They're just like, oh, food.
Yeah.
yeah,
And a tiger weighs what, 500 pounds? 400 or 500 pounds?
It depends. So like the smaller ones that are in the Sundarbans area, they might weigh around 300, 350 pounds. But the big Amur tigers that are classified as Siberian, the big orange tigers that are just look like bears, they could be 700 pounds.
Whoa.
oh, wow,
And they
Yeah.
can jump like 10 feet or something, right?
There has been videos of tigers clearing a 10-foot fence, so USDA moved it up from 12 feet to 16 feet a couple of years ago.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that power.
Yeah, I mean, there's mountain lions can jump 40 feet in a straight line
What?
from a standstill position. So they have to have a roof over their habitats in most areas. And there are certain facilities that don't do roofs, and that just gives me far too much anxiety, so we're doing roofs on ours. But yeah, I mean, there's videos out there. I mean, the caracols can jump 10 feet, 12 feet in the air and knock down 4 or 5 birds in one stance, and there's videos on YouTube of them doing it. And these are just highly efficient killing machines. And
Wow.
to think that you would want to go in with one of them, and they can be docile, like cheetahs can be docile. There's animals you can go in with, and they're not going to do you any harm. And there's people that go in with animals all the time, and they portray it as, I can go in with all my animals. No, you can go in with 2 or 3 out of the 100 you have, and you constantly show the same ones because those animals have every reason to trust you. But if they go into heat and you don't notice it, all the friendship is put to the side, and they will kill you. So it's dangerous even on that level. So,
Wow.
there's just not a property that I know of or anyone that can go in with all of their animals. Joe included. He did not go in with every single big cat that he had. It'd be very foolish to do that.
I don't think of even like a house cat. Like You play with a house cat, they get kind of aggressive and rough.
Yeah.
And it'll hurt you. It's this tiny little animal.
Yeah.
You can imagine like something 100 times that size.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I mean, and there's video still that PETA got and the Humane Society got one day were at Joe's facility undercover as volunteers. They wanted to do the interaction just to see what would happen. And there's a video of a white tiger cub just attacking a kid. And, you know, there's skeptical people out there that say, you know, this animal might have been 6 months old, but USDA is not regulating the 16-week-old. You know, this animal's got, you know, there's some animals that start to get their canines in that are running around here with kids.
Whoa.
And then we realized that they were defanging them and declawing them. And therefore, whenever they bit them, the kid was fine. And we were like, how is this kid okay?
Yeah.
So it just shows, again, the abuse that you have to do to these animals to be able to generate that money from them. How much would you have to starve that animal to get them to look 3 months old when they're 6 months? And at 6 months old, they're gaining a pound a day in the wild.
Wow. So,
you know, this animal looks 3 months old and they're 6 months old. What the heck is going on? What did you have to do to that animal to starve them that much? So, I mean, we want people to be able to recognize these red flags and be able to see some of that stuff. But there's many instances of kids getting bit and nothing happening, and we're just like, what is going on here? And we realize, oh, this animal's been declawed and defanged. They have no teeth. You know, they can't bite anyone. So
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, man, it's been awesome having you on. What information do you want to tell everyone that you want to plug, that people can go and find more information about how to donate to your charity and what they can do to support or help out?
Yeah, so the main thing that we would like people to do is to sign up for monthly donations. The best thing about having a nonprofit is knowing what you're getting in every single month, and with so much uncertainty due to COVID-19, a lot of our donors have backed out. And we totally understand that they are going through some hard financial hardships right now. So if you go to our website, shizzyswildcatrescue.org, you can sign up for monthly donations through that. If you do not have the ability to contribute monetarily, that is perfectly fine. Reach out anyway. There's tons of ways where you can help where you do not have to donate $1. We're working currently on a digital wildlife magazine, so we can talk about how to be a responsible consumer and a responsible tourist. So you can vote with your wallet. If you're not able to travel, there are still ways for you to help. There's something for everybody to be able to do to better themselves. We want to promote that you make conservation a part of your daily life and not just something you do once a year when you go to a zoo or a sanctuary, and you start to change small things about your life, the products that you purchase, the companies you support, and you do some more research. And we'll do the research for you and put some factual information out there with some evidence and sources. So utilize our website, find us on social media at Instagram at Shizzy's Wildcat Rescue. And reach out to us via email or DM me if you have questions or if you have concerns about our organization because of Tiger King or whatever the case may be. We'd be glad to be transparent and genuine and answer whatever questions you guys have.
And how can they look up on social media? What are your social media?
We're on Facebook right now under Shizzy's Wildcat Rescue, and on Instagram as well under Shizzy's Wildcat Rescue.
Okay, cool.
And I refuse to make a TikTok right now.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, me either.
I made one, and the main part of it is just there's this feature where it makes us me and you and the creative businessman, and it's just like a little 15-second clip, a little morph thing. But other than that, I'm like, man, I don't know how to put this to good business use yet.
Yeah, one more thing to deal with. Yeah.
It's one more thing. I'm like, I don't know that I want to do this.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, WhatsApp became a social media platform. Snapchat became a social media platform.
Yep.
And probably the next big social media platform is going to be invented during this crisis. But yeah, I do think that. Is there anything you guys would like me to plug on social media for you guys, or anything like that, or?
It'll all be in the links and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And as you mentioned it, everyone, if you like the episode, just be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on social media. Definitely follow Shazir on social media and look at his website for more information.
Yeah, and anybody else, if you didn't like it, you can still subscribe. You can still hit the like button. And you can turn on notifications. And if you want, you can share it to your friends. Maybe they've got a sense of class and culture and humor, and they'll enjoy it. Just play.
That's funny. Well, Shaz, it was awesome having you on, dude.
Yeah, Neil, Daniel, I appreciate it, guys.
Definitely. I was looking forward to this one. I was looking forward to this one before the whole Tiger King stuff, right? And now, and even more so, I was like, man, this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Glad
absolutely.
it went well.
Well, bye, everybody.
Later, guys.
See ya.
Take care, everyone.